In this video, we're going to be covering pre-algebra fractions and decimals, basically converting, fractions into decimal form and decimals into fractions. So let's start the first section. It tells us to write each as a decimal and use repeating decimals when necessary. So let's start with number 1. It's asking us to convert 1/4 into a decimal. So what you want to do is take the denominator, which is the 4, and place it on the outside of the fraction and put that 1 inside. Now we can't just do 4 into 1 because it won't work. So what we have to do is put a decimal here and add some zeros. You can add an infinite amount of zeros. It's not going to change the value of that 1. So for right now, let's just put 2. 4 goes into 1 0 times. Bring that decimal up. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Bring down that 0. 4 goes into 25 times. 5 times 4 is 20. We end up getting 0. So 1/4 is equal to 0.25. Number 2. What we're going to do on this one is we leave the 2 where it's at, and we actually just convert that 3/5. When we convert the 3/5, whatever decimal value we get, we add that to the 2. So let's just do the same thing we did on number 1. Put the 5 on the outside, bring the 3 in here, put a decimal, add a couple zeros. Okay, 5 goes into 3 0 times, bring that decimal up. 5 goes into 36 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract those, we get 0. So 3/5 is equal to 0.6. So what we do is we take the 2 and add that to 0.6. We end up getting 2.6. Number 3. 5/8. Same thing, take the 8, put the 5 underneath, add a decimal, add a 0. 8 goes into 5 0 times. Bring the decimal up. 8 goes into 56 times. 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract those, we end up getting 2. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 22 times. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract those, we get 4. Bring down another 0. We get 40. 8 goes into 45 times. 5 times 8 is 40. We subtract those, we get 0. So 5/8 is equal to 0.625. Number 4. 5 goes into 3 0 times, bring the decimal up. 5 goes into 36 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract those, we get 0. So 3/5 is equal to 0.6. Okay, number 5. 207 points, add a couple zeros here. 200 goes into 7 0 times, bring the decimal up. 200 goes into 70 0 times. 200 goes into 700 3 times. 3 times 200 is 600. Subtract those, we get 100. Bring down the next 0, we get 1,000. 200 goes into 1,000 5 times. 5 times 200 is 1,000. We end up getting 0 when we subtract those. So 7 over 200 is equal to 0.035. Okay, number 6. So let's put the 33 on the outside, put the 8 on the inside. 33 goes into 8 0 times, bring a decimal. 33 goes into 82 times. 2 times 33 is 66. We subtract those, we get 14. Bring down another 0. 33 goes into 144 times. With that, we get 132. Subtract those. Here we get an 8. And that's it. Bring down another 0. We get 80. 33 goes into 82 times. And what you're going to notice is that it's actually going to start repeating. 0.24, 24, 24, 24. So what we do is we write this as 0.24 repeated. Okay, number 7. 11 and 6. I'm going to put this in a different color so we don't interfere with number 5. So 11 goes into 6 0 times. Bring a decimal up. 11 goes into 65 times. 5 times 11 is 55. We subtract those, we end up getting 5. Bring down another 0. 11 goes into 54 times. 11 times 4 is 44. Subtract those, we get a 6. Bring down another 0, we get 60, which is what we originally started with. So again, you're going to get 5, 4, 5, 4 repeated. So 6 elevenths is equal to 0.54 repeated. Number 8. 50 on the outside. Bring 7 on the inside. And then 50 goes into 70 times. 50 goes into 71 times. 1 times 50 is 50. Subtract those, we get a 20. Bring down another 0. 50 into 200 is 4. 4 times 50 is 200. We end up getting 0 when we subtract those. So 7/50ths is 0.14. Okay, number 9. So same thing we did, I think it was number 2, where we have a whole number, in this case 4, and then we have 27 over 125. We're just going to divide that, and then whatever value we get, we're going to add that onto the 4 value. So let's go ahead and start with that one. So we're going to write 125 on the outside, 27 on the inside, put a decimal, add a couple zeros, goes into 70 times, bring a decimal up. 125 into 270 is 2. 2 times 125 is 250. Subtract those, we end up getting 20. Bring down another 0. 125 into 200 is 1. 1 times 125 is 125. Subtract those, we end up getting 85. Bring down another 0. 125 goes into 856 times. 6 times 125 is 850. Subtract those, we get 0. So the 27 over 125 equals 0.216. So we add that to the 4, and we end up getting 4.216. Okay, number 10. 7 divided by 20. So let's put the 20 on the outside, put the 7 on the inside, add a decimal, add a couple zeros. 20 goes into 70 times, bring the decimal up. 20 goes into 73 times. 3 times 20 is 60. Subtract those, we get 10. Bring down another 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. We subtract those, we get 0. So 7 over 20 equals 0.35. Okay, number 11. So we have 1 over 111. So let's go ahead and write 111 on the outside. Put 1 on the inside, add a decimal, add a couple zeros. So 111 goes into 10 times, bring up a decimal. 111 goes into 10 times. 111 goes into 100 times. 111 goes into 1,000 9 times. So 9 times 111 is 999. All that, we get 1. Bring down another 0, we get 0. 111 goes into 10 times, bring another 0 down, we get 100. 111 goes into 100 times, bring down another 0. 111 goes into 1,009 times, and as you see, this one's going to repeat also. So 1 over 111 equals 0.009 repeated. Number 12. 1 divided by 125. So put the 125 on the outside, 1 on the inside, add a couple zeros. 125 goes into 10 times, 125 goes into 10 times, 125 goes into 100 times, 125 goes into 1,008 times. 8 times 125 is 1,000. Subtract those, we get 0. So 1 over 125 equals 0.008. Okay, so in this section, what we're going to be doing now is converting decimals into fractions. So what we can do, there's a couple ways you can do it. I'm going to do one method on number 13 and a different method on number 14. So let's start with this. So like I said before, when we have a whole number, let's say 2 and 1/2, we take the 2 and then we divide the 1/2, we know is 1/2 equals 0.5, and then we add that to the whole number. So we end up getting 2.5. Well, the only part that we're really interested in then is this 0.5. We already know the 2 value is going to be added and then a decimal following that. So with number 13, if we just focus on that 0.2, we can just convert that into a fraction and add that to the whole number 2. So let's go ahead and do that method. So let's just take the 0.2. Now whenever we move the decimal, we have to keep in mind we're kind of adjusting the fraction, if you will. So right now what 0.2 looks like, if you will, is 0.2 over 1. If we move the decimal, let me change colors real quick. If we move the decimal over, one place, the decimal on this one moves over one place also. So this becomes 2/10. Okay. The reason being is we move the decimal from the 0.2 over here in front to this 2, and from the 1 over here, so we ended up getting 2/10. So we add that onto this 2, and we get a final answer of 2 and 2/10. Okay, number 14. What I'm going to do, I said I was going to do a different method. So what you can do is the same thing as 1.6 over 1, okay? Same concept, moving the decimal over in one place and moving this decimal over one place and filling it with a 0. So we end up getting 16 over 10. One thing you can do is reduce it right away because our common factor is 2 between 16 and 10. The 16 becomes an 8 and the 10 becomes a 5. Now we have 8/5. The 5 goes into the 8 one time with 3 left over, and then you just put that 5 back at the bottom. So that's 1 3/5. You could do either way. I'll change up the methods on different ones, and then you could try different ones on your own. So let's start with 15. We have 0.008 over 1. Move the decimal over 1, 2, 3. That means we have to move this decimal over 1, 2, 3. Add zeros inside. We end up getting 8 over 1,000, and we have to reduce. Right away we know that 4 goes into both, so 4 goes into 8 2 times, and 4 goes into 1,250 times. We can even reduce more. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 250 125 times, so we end up getting 1 over 125. Number 16, 0.27 over 1. Move the decimal over 1, 2. Move this decimal over 1, 2. Fill that with zeros. We get 27 over 100, and that can't be reduced. So that's the final answer on that. Number 17. So let's leave the one where it's at. Just work with that 0.76. So 0.76, move the decimal over 1, 2. Move this decimal over 1, 2. You get 0, 0. So you get 76 over 100. We know 2 goes into both, so 2 goes into 76 38 times. 2 goes into 150 times. We can reduce that even more. 2 goes into 38 19 times. 2 goes into 50 25 times, and that's it. So we have 1 and 19/25. Okay, number 18. So these ones are a little bit more tricky because we have repeating values. So it's a little bit different than if we didn't. What I'm going to do is kind of walk you through it instead of trying to explain too much. But what we have to do is let x equal 0.15, our repeating decimal, 1.15, on forever. So then we have to define 10x. So 10x equals 100x. And the reason we have to do 100x is because we need to kind of pick up where it repeats the decimal. Let me explain that. So I'm going to kind of space this thing out, 1515. this is where the decimal repeats from 1 5, then again 1 5, 1 5, 1 5. So what we need to do is figure out where it repeats. So as we see where the purple is, so that's 2 decimal places, so that's 100. So we have to say 100x is going to equal 15.15 repeated. Then we have to subtract x from both sides, and remember, x is 0.15 repeated. So what we get on the left side, 100x minus x, is 99x equals 15.15 repeated minus 0.15 repeated is just 15. So then we divide both sides by 99. We end up getting x equals 15 over 99, or 0.15 repeated is 15 over 99. Okay, number 19, 0.3 repeated. Again, let's let x equal 0.3 repeated. And because before where we had number 18, where we only had, the repetition was every 2 values, 1 5, then 1 5, then 1 5. This one's just one repetition, meaning 3, and then it repeats 3, and then repeats 3, and so on. So in this case, what we need to do is, instead of multiplying by 100x, we only need to do 10x. And again, let me explain that the way I did on the previous one. Because it only repeats, the repetition is every 1 value, then we only do 10. If it was every, for example, 3 values, then it would be 1000x. And like number 18, it was every 2 values, so it was 100x. But in number 19, because it's only 1 value that repeats, we're only doing 10x. So we're going to say 10x equals, and again, we're multiplying x by 10, so because we defined x equals 0.33, we just move the decimal over 1. And this repeats on and on. Then we subtract x from both sides. 10x minus x is 9x equals 3.33 repeated minus x. So remember, x is equal to 0.33 repeated. So 3.3 repeated minus 0.3 repeated is just 3. Divide both sides by 9. We end up getting x equals 3/9. We can reduce that to 1 and 3, so we get 1/3 for number 19. Okay, number 20. Same thing as number 18. We define x equals 0.090909 repeated. I'm going to do the same concept with the repetition, 09, 09, 09, and so on. Okay, so we need to do 100x this time, and 100x would equal 9.0909 repeated. Subtract x from both sides. 100x minus x is 99x equals 9.0909 minus 0.0909 is just 9. Divide both sides by 99. We end up getting x equals 9 over 99. Reduce that, 1 and 11. So we end up getting, for number 20, 1 over 11. Okay, number 21, 0.7. Same thing as number 19, where we only have one value repeating. So we get x equals 0.7 repeated forever. Let 10x equal 7.77 repeated. Subtract x from both sides. We get 9x equals 7. And then divide both sides by 9. We end up getting 7/9. Okay, number 22. I'm going to do this in a different color so it doesn't mesh with number 20. Okay, so we get x, let me try a different color. So we get x equals 0.4646 repeated. Because the repetition is every 2 values, we're going to multiply by 100x. So we get 100x equals 46.46 repeated. Subtract x from both sides. We get 99x on this side equals 46.46 minus x, which is 0.46. We end up getting 46. Divide both sides by 99. We get 46 over 99. Okay, number 23. So this one we don't have repeating. So we have 0.005 over 1. Move the decimal over 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Filled those in with zeros. We end up getting 5 over 1,000. When we reduce that, what we end up getting is 5 goes into 5 one time, 5 goes into 1,000 200 times. So we end up getting 1 over 200. Number 24, 0.4 over 1. Move the decimal over 1. Move this decimal over 1. We end up getting 4 over 10. When we reduce that, we get 2 and 5. So 0.4 equals 2/5. And this is fractions and decimals.